This is an amazing question, Yannick. I think this is directly addressing the process of demystifying these things, right? I think this is a really good place for us to actually address that directly. So now when we talk about working in the coaching space, what we're truly doing is working with our alpha state of mind, which is the conscious state of mind, right? So that is our normal day-to-day operation mind. And we also understand that there's another layer of our mind, which we could call subconscious or unconscious mind, where there is a specific script that we have created for ourselves throughout our upbringing. All throughout our upbringing, from the day we were born, the day we were just experienced, or even during our the embryo stage, even during the inside of the womb. So when we look at this process of growing up, there's so much that we have become which we call conditioning, right? So all of this is under our normal conscious operation. So every time we do something, although we think we have that conscious control over what we do, we don't understand that it's always controlled by this underlying mind that we have. So when we want to make deep changes in an individual, especially specific habitual things that they do, at the same time, very strongly specific behavior that they demonstrate that they are not aware of most of the time. Excuse me. So when they are always operated by this underlying mind. So in coaching, what we do is the conscious process. We enable people to truly look at consciously who they are, look deep within themselves, and create patterns in a way that they can change subconscious behavior up to a certain extent. People often can take actions and change themselves, even if it is a subconscious behavior. At the same time, there are certain aspects that could contain certain amount of trauma. It could be trauma from their own life, childhood, or it can even be sometimes generational trauma, which might have been passed on to them through their genetics, which we call epigenetics. So when you experience trauma at that level, sometimes subconsciously you're very strongly hardwired because it's a fear function. It threats your survival. So then the way you operate is modified compared to what we usually call normal, right? So in order for us to correct that behavior, for an example, smoking, right? People say, I know it's bad smoking, but the moment they have the urge, they go light up another cigarette, right? That means they are not just controlled by conscious mind. It comes from their deeper conscious mind, right? Subconscious mind. So therapy is to work with these vibrational changes. It doesn't matter what kind of therapy we use. Whatever that works, we need to integrate and create that vibrational change so that we can do the subconscious change. So as a coach, we usually operate in this conscious world. Now, how do these two come together? This is where the intersection that we are talking about. Now, this is the beauty of these two worlds. Now, as a coach, we know that we create lots of self-awareness and we come into the space as an equal partner with our clients. At the same time, we create a space that we learn from the client rather than looking at we are the superior or we know more than the client, right? So with this mindset, what happens is when a client goes through this psychedelic experience, like you said very well, they get a different frame of perception. So they create awareness that is usually expanding their consciousness. Very interesting insights are created during these deep therapeutic experiences, right? As you very, very well mentioned. So you have a different perspective. Now you bring that perspective back. And now how do we see what that means and then create development out of that? So on a conscious level, when someone has experienced something vibrational, like a psychedelic experience, when they come out of it, all the insights and learning, every little bits of whatever that they experience during the experience is extremely valuable for their development. So a coach is someone who can elevate that process and find those answers that client already has found within themselves and bring them to the next level so that it creates true impact in the client. That's how the coaching lens of it. Now the therapy lens of it is that, as you know, if you observe the psilocybin brain under MRI during they are going through the experience, the peaks of the experience, we find out the default mode network of our brain is almost in a non-functional state. So I'm sharing, probably Yannick, you shared this many times in your podcast. I'm sharing this coming from a perspective of what happens to our brain. I hope you don't mind me going into details.
No, please do.
Yeah, okay. So we have the default mode network, certain areas of our brain, and they become almost non-functional in a very safe way. And at the same time, all the cortexes, they like what are responsible for sound, balance, language, all of those start connecting directly with each other, and they create this possibility of experiencing a mystical experience, or we call it ego death, which means the sense of self is about ourselves, which means who we are, our identifications, our associations to the world. At the same time, awareness of our time, past, present, future, all of those things is taught in the default mode network. So in the default mode network is almost not present to our brain. They connect in a beautiful way that it magnifies the brain connections to several more times than the usual state, which means the client is vibrationally open. This is a state very suggestive. This is a space where the client, if the client reflected in the right way, in a very safe, vulnerable, comfortable space, a very safe space with the right guidance, they can alter their subconscious mind. Well, this is, in my personal belief, at a quantum level, at a molecular level, we create changes to ourselves, and that's why we heal through this experience when we come out of it. So so a therapist can handle this part because they understand what happens in our brain from a neuroscience perspective, psychological perspective, and also the intervention itself. What kind of intervention are we using in this kind of situation? So having a deeper knowledge about therapeutic understanding, science and clinical understanding of this medicine is extremely important if we invite clients into ceremonies where they apply psilocybin ingestion, right? So if we go to that level, then we need to have a very good deep understanding about the medicine. And however, that shouldn't hinder a coach being able to work with individuals who may be taking their own responsibility to go through these experiences, or maybe they partner up with another therapist who offers psilocybin. And I can speak for a therapist and say, usually when we work with a patient, very often we look at the patient as something to be fixed. There's something to be fixed. We come into that space. But we know as professional coaches, that's the power and the beauty and the very backbone of coaching, where we come in partner with clients and wanting to learn from the client and let the client be the lead, at the same time the expert of their own life. So when client has created so much self-awareness, self-efficacy, and I would also like to call this super-positioning. Usually we know often people are on their own way most of the time. They are their own problem. When they have their default mode network shuts down for a while, when they look at themselves as who they are, all of a sudden their perception has changed about themselves. So they are in the best understanding of who they are because they have had the opportunity to see themselves from a different perspective, which is not normal. And that's why we call it mystical, that which cannot be explained using measures. Right. So that's how these two worlds come together. So I think coaches are really very well best positioned to work with individuals who go through these psychedelic journeys.